I was too until the 5th episode, and then I didn't think they were going to do it anymore.
Right.
Even if they did a time jump, it still doesn't make sense to do. So I think, though, I still kind of have that for the books, though. I could see it happening more so when you have nothing but time.
The last sort of theme that I wanted to talk about real quick is that I think Tyrion said it, or maybe it was Varys, that like love is the death of duty. Sort of. Do you remember?
But he was quoting Aemon. No, Jon says it,
Jon
and
said
Jon
it.
is quoting Aemon because of his whole Aemon watched his whole family slaughtered also.
Right.
And thought he was the last one.
And basically, like, if he were to give into that, then like he would give up his duty at the Night's Watch. He tells Jon that, whenever Jon's thinking about leaving the Night Watch to help Robb out. So it's like this internal conflict that like he's got a battle between like his responsibility and his position versus like where his like love allegiances are,
which is why the Night's Watch and the Kingsguard aren't allowed to take wives.
Right. I just thought that whole theme was interesting to see throughout, like in the different characters and like where it applied differently. Like you also saw that like at the end with Daenerys and Jon too. Love is the death of duty.
He almost didn't do what he had to do because he loved her.
He knew that was his duty, but he fucking loved her. And it's kind of that struggle of like, do you do what's right or do you do what you want to do because that's where your heart's pulling you. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know.
I do love that, especially because it's from Aemon, who had to just sit and watch. Like, I can't imagine that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Why did he have to sit and watch?
Because he was already he'd been in the
Since
Night's
he's young.
Watch for years and years and years. So it was like his great nephew was the Mad King, and he was skipped over. He didn't want the throne. It could have been him. So it's also like that whole like coulda, shoulda, woulda, whatever. It could have been him. So like not only, and he says it way back.
Because it was Egg, Duncan Egg.
Duncan
was his older brother or younger brother?
Egg is his younger brother. So when he dies, it's his descendants that are the Mad King. But he should have been the king.
Right.
After his older brother. I think it was like something like, it was supposed to be his older brother, and then
he died something.
And then it was not supposed to be him, and he didn't want it, and then it went to Egg. But, which Duncan Egg is a really great, like, short stories by George R. R. Martin. But anyway, he said, like, okay, well, like, he kind of was sitting through, like, his his nephew being slaughtered, whatever. But then when they massacred the children and the babies, that was, like, absolute. And then it was over. You know what I mean? Like, by the time they did that, Robert Baratheon had already taken power.
Right.
But that was, like, unbearable for him.
Yeah, but just thinking, like, maybe he could have prevented that in some kind of way.
Robert Baratheon massacred.
So the
Rhaegar
the mountain
Targaryen's first two children.
Yeah.
The mountain killed him, and that's the whole thing with the Viper, because it was also his
which actually is
niece and nephew.
The dashing of babies' heads on the walls comes directly from real history, by the by.
Yes. Also, the two little Lannisters and like just taking power over like tiny baby kings,
Yeah. It's crazy, like, just like
Tower of London, yeah.
Just watch some medieval, English history documentaries, and you'll be like, that happened in Game of Thrones.
That's actually a funny point when people talk about like how brutal Game of Thrones is as a show, and like sometimes I get these like hot takes where people are like, well, it's a fantasy series, why can't you just like make it nice? And I'm like,
no, actually.
Well, because it's based on War of the Roses and all of these other like things that have happened throughout history.
Like, and the most brutal parts, like, directly pulled from history.
And humanity is brutal. Like, that's what we are. So I don't think there's anything wrong with being a reflection of that.
And that's what George R. R. Martin's
because
like,
that's what we know.
And he's absolutely said, like, that some of his best stuff, like, comes from
direct, like, it's
real
not
life.
Even,
Like, I don't even have to make that shit up. It's already happened. The Red Wedding is also an example. I think that was like Scottish lords and stuff.
So many of those things.
Why he's such like a good historic writer.
Yes.
Well, and that's actually, I remember listening to a historian on like some NPR, I think it was like Fresh Air, and she asked him like what his favorite historical fictional show was, and he was like, actually Game of Thrones, because when he watches like the Tudors, he can't, because he's a historian, all he can think about is what's wrong and what they're doing incorrectly. So he loves like Game of Thrones because you don't have like, this is exactly this
how it happened
thing,
yeah,
but it so draws from it. And I was really surprised when he said that, but it makes perfect sense because it's War of the Roses, like, and all these other events.
Pretty cool.
Almost exactly.
I have one question. Where do you guys think Drogon took Dany?
Valyria. Valyria, I could see that. Back to where the Targaryens are from and where dragons are from. That's kind of where I guess he would go.
I just didn't know where he's going.
We
didn't talk about
if not there,
his sweet little scoop up
with his
of
little
her.
nails.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, with his sweet little back paw. I'm obsessed with paws of any animal, which you guys know because I'm obsessed with cat paws and I want to eat dog paws and stuff.
Well,
not really eat them, but kiss them.
I know
But
what you
when
mean
he
by that.
scooped
It's like
her-
when people say they want to eat babies. I actually was reading some kind of article on like why people say they want to eat babies. Like there's a specific like biological pull to that like impulsive saying that. And I don't remember what it was, but it was such a fascinating article because I've never used that phrase.
That's why I want to eat children all the time.
And it's like I've never used that phrase, but I've heard people use it and also thought it was weird. But there's like a really like a very real thing that makes you like some kind of material.
Babies don't pull that to me, but like animals' paws.
But I mean,
are
but that's
so
a thing
cute.
that
The
people
same
say.
instinct,
Like,
yeah.
it's the same instinct, exactly. That kind of actually leads into the fact that Drogon's still out there, just with no.
I didn't know what that was going to lead into, but I'm glad it is.
Well, so we know the prequel is coming, and we're going to give you the updates on that really quick before we leave. But also, I feel like, and I don't think Dan and Dave will get them, but I feel like they did leave a little bit of room for in case HBO decides they just, love money.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That we could
do a
series. Sequel. Well, no, I think there could be a sequel, like especially with the way that John left and how open-ended that is. Like, I don't know. I don't think we would get it anytime soon.
Yeah.
I don't know that it would be. I don't think it would be the same writers, but I've never thought they would do a sequel until that ending, and I was like, I think you left yourself.
Yeah,
some breathing room.
Do you think he took her to like the 7 guts or whatever, or the 7 guts to be reborn, like the Lord of Light,
Oh, to be brought back. I think there's got to be like a time frame on that, right?
Yeah.
To be brought back, because like
I don't know if he would know.
And also, I don't know if any like dragon. Like I know we were talking about House Martha, but I don't know if he knows like any like personal like priestesses who could do that for him.
Well, here's another thing too, is that I don't think so, but because the only reason I say that is I do think there's a time frame because, and it was a couple days after John died, but Thoros, when he was like bending over Beric, when he brought him back in that scene, like way back in season 3 or whatever the fuck that was, and he's like really hurriedly whispering the words, and like he seemed very stressed and like come on, and I think that there's definitely, especially, well, and the other thing is, if the Lord of Light brought John back, and the only like big significant thing,
the other Lord of Light.
What? The Lord of Light acting through Melisandre brought John back.
Who are they acting through now, though?
There's other like red priestesses out there.
It's all the Lord of Light, though. The Lord of Light brought John back. He killed Dany. That's the only significant thing he's really done since, because he didn't kill the Night King. So I doubt the Lord of Light would bring her back,
right?
If that was his purpose. Anyway, really quick, gonna give you the update on that prequel. We know it's set in the Age of Heroes, and the cast list includes starring Naomi Watts. If you're not familiar, Age of Heroes is thousands of years before Game of Thrones is set. It's when the White Walkers first came. It's a 4,000 year period, but during that is when the White Walkers first came. So we're kind of like keeping with the biggest lore of the show. It's also when Bran the Builder first built Winterfell and Storm's End and the Wall.
I'm pretty pumped to see that.
Yeah, and when many of the great houses that we know, including the Starks, were established, and I believe the Lannisters are around about the same time. I'm not sure. Tyrells I know come later, But a lot of the great houses, the Baratheons, like, this is when they get established, right? And this is before Aegon the Conqueror came over. So as far as production, they've begun it, but, like, you won't see anything before 2020. They've said they kind of, like, want Game of Thrones to have its own thing and not just seem like a jumping off point for something else. So they're kind of going to, like, give it a respectful amount of time, you know, before they start this new project.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I do too, especially if this blows, you know. Like
don't
spin-offs
associate
don't always go well. So,
Sure.
But the other people sign on. Very importantly, George R. R. Martin is co-writing it with... So I know what you're going to say, and I'll address it, with Jane Goldman. And Jane Goldman is also the showrunner and, like, one of the executive producers. So she's known for Kick-Ass, which is an adaptation of a comic.
I think that's a great
Stardust, an adaptation of a Neil Gaiman book. A lot of fantasy folks will know that. And The Woman in Black. So he's co-writing it, and I think that, like, importantly, and because he's still working on Winds of Winter... You know, I think that it's going to be a lot of, like, his... How I imagine this going in my head is her being like, what's supposed to happen? Tell me. Okay, I'll write it down. You can go back to whatever the fuck you're doing. Because, you know, George R. R. Martin's not known for being timely.
Yeah.
So, but also for Harry Potter fans, the Rita Skeeter actress, Miranda Richardson, is signed on. So that's pretty exciting. We're not done with this realm. We'll see... kind of what happened. So that leads into just our wrapping up. We like to keep you up to date on what else we're watching, listening to, reading, otherwise consuming. So, Olivia, what are you obsessed with this week?
Okay, so I knew Game of Thrones was coming to an end, so I needed a similar vibe. So I actually went back and started rewatching The Vikings. It's the History Channel puts it on. I know what you're thinking. Like they're the same channel that throws on, like, Ice Truckers. What the hell? Vikings is so good, you guys. It is immersive. It is amazing. And
Dad loves it.
get along really well with your dad, I think.
I can't wait for you guys.
It's so amazing. I think the number one reason, if you guys are all, you know, big fans of Arya and Sansa and, like, the badass female ladies in Game of Thrones, you should check it out, The Vikings, because there is this shield. She's a shield maiden, which is a warrior. Her name is Lagertha, and she fucking kicks ass. She is the baddest female character I have seen on TV that includes Game of Thrones. I hate to say it, but, like, she's got the crown of
Big
them
talk.
all. Like, fucking amazing.
Better
and
than
her
Buffy?
Yes. And her hair is really, really dope.
I have to say that Lauren's mouth is agape at that. We've talked about that. I've never watched Buffy, but that really hit her.
She's so amazing, and her hair is always on point, guys. Like, just want to throw that out there. But anyways, Vikings, great show. Lagertha, the best.
All right, she stands. Lauren, what about you?
Well, I have two things. I have been following this person on Instagram. He is I Am Mosho. He is a cat rapper, basically. His cat's name is Ravioli. It's
Ravioli.
I Am Mosho, S-H-O. He is freaking amazing. He reads Harry Potter to his cats, and he is a feminist, like, beyond means. Like, I love him so much. He's amazing.
He sounds like he found his niche, like, right?
Yeah.
He's wonderful.
Reading Harry Potter to cats on the internet.
And he
rapping
is,
while doing that.
yeah, he will take a bath with his cat, Ravioli.
Wow.
I think you've shown me this before, actually.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Nice.
And he stands up for women's rights every single day. He will post something, and he's by our side. He is amazing.
What's your other one?
The show I've been watching, I've watched the entire season, and I finished it. Dead to Me.
Oh, nice.
I
we're
wasn't
going to discuss
bring
this
that
soon.
up first, but I was like, they probably already discussed it.
No, we'll have a forthcoming podcast because I also love this
Finished
show on
it
Netflix.
in 2 days.
So I almost had this be my thing, but I was like,